And here we go. Welcome to episode 19 of the Huddle, coming to you live on the Blue Bombers YouTube page every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Thanks for being a little bit patient with us for our start here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell. We won't be on next Tuesday because of the bye week. Just let you know that right now. I'm your host, Ed Tait of the BlueBombers.com. We're thrilled to be joined this week by Troy Westwood, the Blue Bombers' all-time leading scorer, a man who stood up for 18 seasons for this franchise. He's in the Blue Bomber Hall of Fame, and he played an important part in the game that we're playing this Saturday, the Banjo Bowl. He had a huge role in that. So again, thanks a lot, Troy, for joining us this week. We'll get to this stuff in a sec. We have this segment off the top. We have it sponsored too, so that's cool. We'll get to the origins of the Banjo Bowl, and we'll do some reminiscing with the legendary Troy Westwood. Before we get to that, we like to open up with this kind of informal Q&A kind of thing so that fans who might not know you get to know you a little bit better. This is called the Coors Light Chill Chat, and it's brought to you by Coors Light, the official beer of the Blue Bombers, and now a word from our sponsor.
There's regular cold, and then there's the mountains are blue cold. Mountain cold refreshment. Coors Light, the chill choice.
Okay, Troy, so like I said, 18 seasons with the Blue Bombers. That's crazy. There's only one other guy, and you know him very well, who played more, Bob Cameron, 23 years. Mm-hmm. That's crazy to me. So let's do this kind of rapid fire here. As a Manitoba kid, what do you remember about your first training camp with the Blue Bombers? Give us a story about walking into that locker room for the first time.
So walking into the locker room the first time with the rookies was way different than the first day that the vets arrived.
Right.
That I remember very much so. Because in the early parts of training camp then, it was just, you were there with all the other wide-eyed sort of kids. And, it wasn't many years previous to me being in the locker room that I was selling popcorn and peanuts up and down the stadium stairs. I recall very specifically walking in when the vets were there and seeing Trev and Bob sitting together, and over there was Tyrone Jones, James West, Greg Battle, Pal Randolph, and then at the far where the old linemen sat, and they were legendary back then, right? Stan McAwas and Walby holding court with Lyle Bauer, wow. Dave Black, Nick Benjamin, Bob Molly, all those kind of guys. So that was the legendary team that I had, as all the Winnipeggers and Manitobans, right, from 84, 88, 90, I came into that sort of, imagine the chutzpah and the, all the kind of that team had. And it was just, it's forever burnt into my memory.
Some of the guys from that era talk about starting in the rookie dressing room and making it to the big dressing room, because the rookie dressing room was basically a broom closet, wasn't it?
Well, for that year, we were on an island in the middle of the room.
Oh, okay.
So, and every day there'd be one or two less guys there.
Yeah.
And I was sitting beside a fellow, his name was Craig Harrison, and we managed to make it to all the way through it, but we were just sitting beside each other and joking about, not being sort of guy to be let go, and felt very much sort of on display all the time in the middle, and very quiet, lots of the old mouth shut, eyes and ears wide open sort of thing.
Yeah, because if you did kind of stand out, you were going to hear it from that when you started rattling off those names. If you stood out in the wrong way, you were going to hear it.
I remember Rod Hill, of course, and we start talking about hearing it. Yeah. We were in line waiting for physicals, and Rod just walked down, and a bunch of rookies in a line. He goes, "You're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone." And for some reason, he said, "You have a chance." And he pointed at me. I was like, "Okay, I got a chance." But just ruthless, right?
Yeah.
But real too, and just how dry and cut, you're here, you're gone, it was back then.
Yeah. What do you remember about your first game? Or do you remember anything about it?
Yeah, I remember, my first game was an exhibition game in Toronto. And I didn't play particularly well. But what I remember vividly, the Sky Dome, it was called, was open. And I remember sitting on the bench, leaning back a little bit. And it was just a beautiful Canadian, Ontario sort of evening. The stars were out, and I could see CN Tower jutting
Yeah.
into that opening, and I just was like, holy cow. And the crowd was pretty good. I thought, I can get used to this. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And I remember that very vividly.
You remember your first field goal in a real game?
Yeah, I was called, Trev got injured.
Right.
And I got called, for my first game was in BC Place. Pretty sure, I think it was a 32-yard field goal, something along those lines, and had a decent night. Good enough that first game to stick around for a while.
Yeah. I wrote this down. I would have covered this game, but I'm drawing a blank. I tried to do the YouTube thing on it. You have a touchdown. You have a career touchdown. It was not fake, right?
You're darn right. I remind my son and family members perpetually about it. I can't find it either.
Yeah.
We were actually, last week, we were actually looking for it.
Really?
Yeah.
So I think I remember, I think Bob was the holder,
Yeah.
and he put it down and then flipped it up.
Flipped it over his shoulder. Over his shoulder. So he put it down, over his shoulder. As soon as the ball touched the tee is when I went.
Yeah.
I peeled around him. Rumor was that the turf caught on fire as I turned the corner.
Okay.
And Miles Gorell was one of the fellas blocking for me. And back then, a good buddy of mine was Dave Van Bellingham, who was playing safety for Saskatchewan.
Right.
He molested, spun Van Bellingham around. He was holding him so horribly. And I just got by him as he was peeling down the goal line to come knock me out for sure. And I just got by him. I think he might have caught my hair sort of thing. And then I had the touchdown dance planned already that I'd spin the ball and pull out the six shooters and shoot it down. That's what happened. And forever. And it's just funny you mentioned that because literally last week we were looking for it.
Yeah, because you wanted to show your son.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Joe Pascucci or somebody
That's
has
right.
it, right? Because
Yes.
Joe's got video of everything. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember you being overly superstitious, or were you? Did you have pregame?
In college, I was superstitious enough, Eddie, that as a kid, I used to wear 7 pairs of socks under my cleats for soccer. So, saying that it was a little, I don't know. It's just something that, a lot of superstition is that exact response, right? Why?
Yeah.
So, and when I was in college, I had that, that sort of thing about me. But I learned very soon that if anything knocks you out of the routine and you're not able to fulfill whatever superstition it is that you have, you can't get it done, you're in all kinds of trouble mentally. So I taught myself to not be superstitious anymore.
Okay, so wait, if you put on 7 pairs of socks and then a cleat on, can you even feel your feet?
I was magic back then with the ball striking and such. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't even know how it came to be. But yeah, that was an actual thing I did for a while.
Did you tie up your toe like Dave Cutler used to do? Remember that in the old days?
No, that was for soccer. I used to do the 7 pairs of socks.
7 pairs of socks. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
Okay. I mean, you just rattled off some names when you walked into that locker room. So here's a question. The funniest dude you ever played with? Who made you laugh the most? I ask the current Bomber guys this every week because it's interesting sometimes the answers you get.
I think one-on-one, the guy that made me laugh the most was probably Sveti and Stoddard. Like I was in a corner for a few years there with Sveti, Stoddard, and Tom Canada. Like the blend of that was just remarkable. But overall, the guy that made the room laugh the very most was either Milt or Charlie Roberts.
Oh, yeah?
And maybe it was Charlie Roberts specifically because Milt would just be all over him. And Charlie was just such a funny, easygoing cat. Right, until he walked across the white line sort of stuff. But he was so laid back and easy and just nothing, by what you saw on the surface anyway, nothing ever bothered Charlie Roberts too much. But and then Milt, of course, with the dancing scenes and stuff like that, right? He would bring the whole locker room to a stop with that stuff.
He wasn't exactly like a stand-up comedian funny. He just did stuff to make you laugh, right?
That's right, yeah.
Charles Roberts going into the Ring of Honor this week. That's pretty cool, right?
That's really cool, yeah. Well deserved.
Okay. I know you used to play golf. Do you still play?
No, there was one time I was sleepy in a meeting, and we used to play so much, like 70 times a summer, that Cal Murphy smacked me and said, as I was sleepy, he could tell I was sleepy, he said, "Remember, you're getting paid to play football, not to golf."
Ooh.
So
That's a
But
cutting.
it didn't slow down the golfing at all. We kept golfing a whole bunch. But I ended up tweaking something in my pelvic area from golf because I swung like an idiot.
Yeah.
And then that, along with kicking, was really problematic for me for a while. So I gave up golf altogether, and I just now at my age, at our tender age,
Yeah.
we're probably pretty close to, Eddie.
Yeah.
I just focus on being able to play soccer and
Oh, yeah?
walk on and off the pitch, and I leave golf for the other broken. It just that game basically ripped my heart out, man. And I was really hesitant actually to introduce my son to the game because it
Really?
was so frustrating, and I was like, why do I want to introduce him to this sport?
Will you still play soccer, you say?
Oh yeah.
Well, it
Till
doesn't look
death.
like you've missed any days at the gym either. What the
I
heck?
still try and get there, yeah.
Wow.
4 or 5 times a week in the morning.
Good
do what
for
I
you.
can.
So anyway, the back to the golf question. I know you don't play anymore, but if you had to pick 3 teammates to kind of round out you're going to have 4.5 hours with your buddies out on the course.
Well, my friend, for many years, the foursome was the one and only Mr. Wade Miller.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Along with Brian
Clark.
Clark.
Yeah, a
And-
linebacker.
Yeah, those two were a team against myself and Kahari Jones.
Wow.
And there were some vicious wars and some remarkable shots made and all kinds of double downs and all the rest of it. But it would be that foursome for sure.
Vicious.
It was, and talk about funny, like just, merciless and teasing and the ribbon and stuff like that. It was all kinds of fun.
I know the big man upstairs is competitive. Let's put it that
Just
way.
a wee bit. Yeah. He just got just a touch of competitive spirit to him.
Yeah. Well, you know what? While we got you, tell us your best Wade Miller story, because you were alongside for his whole career, and he was the all-time special teams tackles guy for a while, but he might have been, and I say this as a compliment, the most hated guy in the league by other teams, right?
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember?
He's the quintessential guy that you hate playing against but love having on your team.
Yeah.
A couple of funny things with Wade. The very first training camp of his, it was out in Brandon. I'm in Bob's Jaguar. We're
Bob
driving
Cameron,
out to
yeah.
Brandon, and someone's pulled over by the police for speeding. Happens to be Wade Miller. Bob drives by him and says, "That guy should just go home. He doesn't have a chance. Keep driving, right?" And then we see him out in practice, and he's like, it's funny because I watch these games like with Sergio Garcia and stuff, and think those guys are so little, but then that's exactly what I am out there.
Yeah.
And with Wade back then in those days with the Giants and behemoths on the team was so little, it was just like, that guy doesn't have a chance. But watching the leverage and all that sort of stuff and what he was able to accomplish was remarkable. But the funny stuff or remarkable things with Wade would be maybe my favorite part of things related to Wade and football was in the game, watching game film. Because guys would just, like, you'd see 3 guys that Wade's handling with that, whatever that leverage, that
wrestling,
magical leverage he's
yeah.
got. Yeah. Yeah. And God help you if you ever get into a wrestling thing with him, which I did once, but never again, right? You're trying to grab a head or neck and there's nothing there. It's just the weirdest thing in the world. But yeah, the way that he would use his leverage and the battle, like you talk about the level of give a F or the battle of a player, man, he had that in spades very obviously. And it was just amazing what he was able to carve out for himself.
Yeah, big time. What do you miss the most about your playing days? I asked this of lots of guys of our vintage and that are guys that are younger that don't play anymore. What do you miss the most?
And probably most everybody mentions the locker room,
Yeah.
the camaraderie, and that for sure, like the lifestyle that you live and hanging out, and it's just amazing that that's actually a job and you're getting paid for. And I felt really fortunate, and maybe it was because of the teachings of Bob, but it was something that I never took for granted. Like every single day, just being acutely aware of how lucky and fortunate and we were and that sort of thing. Outside of the camaraderie, which was so much fun, what I missed the very most, and I don't think that there's a way to get the high from it in anything else but sports from what I've known in life, is the opportunity for a game-winning field goal where, this tiny little dot in Canada, Manitoba, Winnipeg, and back in the old days, right, at the old stadium, and for a few minutes, 2-3 minutes leading up to it and during it, and the couple seconds after, it is literally the most important thing on the planet.
Yep.
To everybody watching the game. If it's a TV audience, just the stadium, guys on each side of the field, the essence of that and just how alive you feel, hit or miss it, right? Just put me in that position. I love that position. And that's what I've missed the most, the intensity of game-winning kicks.
You got to have a certain mentality to want that, right? Because there's lots of guys that would love to be on a team, but kind of want to just do their thing and not in obscurity, but you know what I mean? Just be one of the guys and not have to worry about everything. Everybody's watching.
If you don't want that and you're a kicker, you got the wrong job, and you're not going to last very long. That's for sure.
You used to joke because you have such a good sense of humor that you were the best left-footed kicker in Blue Bomber history.
Yeah.
And then Justin
That was
Medlock.
good for a couple of years after I got cut,
Yeah.
right? And then he had to come along and wreck that. So now I define myself as the second best, or I'm either the second best left-footed kicker in Blue Bomber history, or I'm the best left-footed kicker with a mole on my thigh kicker in the Blue Bomber history. I have to make it even more descriptive than just being left-footed.
We'll have to get that in the media guide, its own category.
Yeah.
I mean, Sergio Castillo this year, he's already set the record for most 50-yard plus field goals.
Crazy.
Yeah, and 60-something.
What is he, 5'2"? Seriously, how tall is he?
I don't know, 5'7", maybe?
He's only like an inch or two shorter than me. He looks so tight, but I don't understand that.
Yeah.
When I watch the NFL games,
Yeah.
I don't, and I attended camps in college where I was there with guys from Michigan and Florida and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there'd be a group, if there was 20 dudes there, there'd be 5 guys there that could pound it 55 yards, and I'd fit into that. I was there, right? I'd never been out-muscled or out-powered or anything like that.
Yeah.
And now you watch NFL games, and they're hitting 55, 60-yard field goals and hitting the net behind the uprights.
Yeah.
So that's a percentage, 10, 15, whatever it is, percentage stronger than what I could do in my prime. And then you watch a guy like Sergio who cranks it just smooth as the dickens,
Yep.
right? And pretty much across the board in the CFL, all those guys have that sort of power available to them, and I just find it mind-boggling and smooth. Like I get asked sometimes to go help a kid kick, and I always tell folks I can help punt, like teach punting better because I really had to study that. But now with all the Australian kickers, right? Like who's doing the spirals anymore? The Bob Cameron perfection? Nobody. So we're teaching something that's in museums basically for punting, and with kicking. They use some sort of wedge thing where it's more almost the instep, like the arch of your foot almost contacting instead of the instep where you strike a soccer ball where you tie your shoe sort of thing. I'm like, I can't help. If you want your kid to kick at the level you're seeing right now, I'm not the guy to ask. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. It's so impressive because the analogy you told me back when I was starting to write was that it's like a golf swing, right? And so when you see these guys just have that smooth stroke, like you say, and it's 60 yards, you think in your head, this should be like a Happy Gilmore, a guy running up to kick it, right? Like full speed.
Yeah.
But it just looks so smooth. Anyway, okay. Do you have any, you mentioned game-winning kicks. What are your favorite moments? Like if your son asks you, Dad, you can mention the touchdown, you got to find the video evidence, but what jumps out?
The first time I hit a game winner on a Labor Day game in the Classic, it was like a 37-yarder, I think, when Dunnigan was on the team. And I'm not exaggerating. My legs were shaking so crazily that I could hardly stand up. I remember I was just a combination of, I think I was too ignorant to be and stupid to be scared, but I was just so completely geeked up. And just thank goodness I went through the uprights. So I remember that and just about got killed by Blackie and Walby. There's another time we were at home against BC and we were struggling and I hit a 45-yard or so to make it close. And then somehow we got the ball back right away, like within a 1-minute period, and we're able to win the game. And it was just like, the energy in big kicks like that. And he got all the guys around. And I remember distinctly Chris Walby saying, I love kickers. I love kickers. And that made me laugh forever. And then, of course, the 55-yarder at home against Saskatchewan. And that was, after, I don't know, if there was 25,000 people in the stands, myself, Coach Ritchie, maybe he thought I could make it, and then maybe 5 others were like, Westy can hit this, right? Everyone else is going, oh no, we're dead. So, but we ended up hitting it, and it was pretty darn cool. So there's probably 20 moments that you could recall, and all the rest of it is hazy and stuff. But it was just so much fun.
I got to ask you. I got to do a story on this later in the year, but you played in it. I got to write about it, the U.S. expansion years, because to me, it seems like a dream now. It doesn't even seem real that the Blue Bombers played and that I covered a game in Baltimore, Shreveport, Louisiana, Sacramento, Vegas. Like, what do you remember about that? Because it honestly, it doesn't even seem real to me a little bit right now.
And wasn't there a little bit of chatter about that the last year too, about the
Yeah.
possibility of happening again? I hated it.
Yeah.
Like I absolutely effing hated it.
Yeah.
And just the memories of it was so horrible. Like I remember in Shreveport and getting a police escort to the game, and then the fans screaming the N bomb to guys on our team and stuff, and there's a cage and like all the craziness of that, and then going into Baltimore with Don Matthews as the coach and him coming by Bob and I during warm-up saying, Westwood, we're coming after you. They used to send a guy right off the kickoff to me, and they would slaughter us, right? And they were just such a wicked, powerful team. And so, like the whole, it's just,
concept's
it was,
weird.
desperate times call for desperate measures. It was necessary, but yeah, I absolutely hated
Yeah.
it.
And then to say even then, yeah, you can have all Americans on your roster. There's no ratio. And just some of the stuff they did. And you know what it did to me? And this is my little rant, is that you love the league. I love the league. It kind of made it feel cheap. And when you're down there, it felt so minor league, and it shouldn't have. Anyway.
My favorite overall memory of it was in Sacramento, walking out, and the vaunted old line, of course, led by Mr. Welby, sitting around the pool before. It might have been the day of the game, like back in those days, with a big tub of beer, and it was just like, holy cow, these guys are crazy.
Okay, so, Hustler Patterson's a buddy of mine. I miss TSN 1290. Do you miss doing that? Because I know that you really like doing that.
Well, yeah, anytime, like just sitting like this, talking to buddies and friends and about subject matter that you love, it's an even better job than playing pro ball. Like it really is. The 4 a.m. alarm clock was brutal, but for me having a young son, I was the only one paying the price for that. And then I, picked him up every single day from school and coached him and never had any trouble with stuff like that. And just the talking about something you love so much, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. All the different sort of reincarnations of the show and that sort of thing. And what I found really cool, what was said to me the very most during that time frame was, I used to hate you so much as a player. Now I love you, right? And you'd be in line at a movie or something like that, and with my wife, and she'd make me laugh. I'd laugh, and somebody's head would snap back because they recognized the laugh. So I think overall, what I really dig from that medium and that time frame was that as an athlete, as fans, we all do this. We kind of remove the personality, or don't know the personality, almost like robots out there. But being behind a mic and talking about your family and your kids and all that, like people really get to know you. And it was really cool sharing that for 10 years through TSN.
Yeah, that was awesome. What are you doing now?
Now I work for a company, consulting and digital growth company, and also helping communities, First Nation communities and business owners to secure grants. A company called Gustin Kwan, which has just a fantastic culture, great group of people. And I love it.
Yeah, right on. Good for you. Okay, so let's move on to the next chunk here because, I mean, this is a fun weekend, the Banjo Bowl, and Bombers coming off that big win in the Labor Day Classic. This is why the franchise wanted its own signature game because you get all this momentum. You go into the Labor Day Classic, and it was you lived it. It was kind of the massive home field advantage for them, and then there wasn't anything like that on the Bomber calendar.
Crazy. It's almost hard to imagine that's the way it was for so long.
So this is going to be the 20th Banjo Bowl this weekend. My math is really poor, but I tried to add it up, and I think that's what it is. So we got to go back to how this started because there's a lot of fans. My youngest son was asking me, who's on the show? I said Troy Westwood, and first thing he said was Banjo Bowl, right? And I said, yeah, Banjo Bowl. So I've done a lot of stories on this, but I went back and double checked on stuff, and it sounds to me like the first time someone said banjo picking inbreds was actually a Vancouver writer calling Winnipeg banjo picking.
Bob
inbreds.
and I were eating breakfast and reading the paper back then. Then everybody was reading the paper. And one of the sports writers called us, the Bombers, banjo picking inbreds. And it made me laugh. And hey, Bob, look at this. And we laughed about it.
Yeah. And then I think you used it you mentioned it in going up to the Labor Day game.
That's right.
And it kind of went under the radar.
As most of my jokes tend to do. Yeah. So people that didn't, I'd always, the funny thing, my mom's family being from Regina, every single Labor Day I'd unleash some sort of thing. And one of my aunts was most offended with all the things, different things I said about the fans of the Rough Riders was that Saskatchewan smelled like dirty socks and dill pickle juice. That's what she was deeply upset that I said that. So, but every time I'd throw jabs and that sort of thing. With having, I always have a loony bet with my grandmother there, and it was just piles of fun, right? And growing up, my dad and my uncles, they would always make the trek there and back. So it was deeply ingrained in my DNA, the love of that rivalry. So I'd always say some sort of jab of some sort before any time we played them.
Yeah, so now that you say that, I guess we should write this down. Dirty socks and dill pickle juice? Because if there was a second rider visit, and there usually is, we could call that the dirty socks and dill pickle
probably
juice
could,
game.
That'd be a neat trophy.
Yeah, it would be really an ugly trophy.
Scratch and sniff or something.
Okay, so then, again, you said it before the Labor Day Classic, and it kind of went under the radar, right? And then later that year, before the playoffs,
maybe not the best, but and what's lost a little bit there is I wasn't talking about the riders at all, right? I'm just having fun with the fans, and for I don't know, whatever, however the mind works and stuff like that. I just had this. After saying that to the rider fans for the Labor Day, calling a bunch of banjo picking inbreds, I started kind of having this thing develop, this funny little line. And I had it in my head, and I didn't share it a couple of weeks, and I just kind of, as I often do, giggled to myself for a little bit and let it go. And then one time I told Bob, I got this line in my head, and I want to say it to the media before the game. And I tell it to him, and he goes and he said, do not say that publicly. It'll be on the front page of all papers. It'll cause all kinds of trouble. And that was the only time I didn't listen to Bob. So and I remember gathering everybody around and saying it. And it was just meant in good fun. And it took a little bit for that to come around, but it did.
So are you talking about the apology?
Yes.
Okay, so the apology, because you had already trotted out the banjo picking inbreds thing. And the apology is, this is the day before the West semifinal against the Riders. I had referred to the people of Saskatchewan as a bunch of banjo picking inbreds. Said Westwood with a straight face, but I think you had your tongue in your cheek. I was wrong to make such a statement, and I'd like to apologize. The vast majority of the people in Saskatchewan have no idea how to play the banjo.
That's gold.
Right? And then, that's,
that's probably deserving of a statue right beside Coach Grant.
Well,
frankly, somewhere.
Yeah.
So how do you keep that to yourself, right?
That is a good line. But so when you first started, kind of rehearsed it with Bob, did he laugh first?
No. He was like right away, Westwood, don't say that. It'll be on the. He knew. I guess I was ignorant of it. He knew that there would be some sort of negative twist or like whatever would happen. I just thought it was. I said, Bob, it's too funny. I have to share it.
Yeah. So I remember now. The initial reaction was interesting because I laugh, right? You say that. I was one of the guys in the locker room. You say that, and I just start laughing. Of course, I'm not going to use it, right? I phoned hey, we got to put this on the front page of the sports section, right? This is a great quote. But not everybody took it.
Well, the Sun depicted it. I was on their front page as a negative sort of a thing. And then Brian Williams...
TSN.
Well, I believe he was on CBC back then, pregame, refused to talk about the malicious statement. Oh, come on, man. So I think sometime after that, I apologized to the people who were actually inbred in case their parents, were actually brother and sister. But come on, how could anybody take that statement in a serious manner?
Yeah.
With Manitoba's, Saskatchewan, the exact same fabric of folks in Canada.
Do you remember? So that was before the playoff game. Bombers won that game, right?
Oh, we lost. Oh. And they were playing the banjo when they were sacked.
Oh, that's right. Who was that big D lineman?
Some jerk.
Yeah.
I always know his name, and I've done a couple of functions with him since then.
I remember he was the one. I think he sacked Kahari and then pretended to be like a dog and take a pee on him.
He might have done that too. Yeah, for sure. He played the banjo.
Yeah, and he played the banjo. Yeah. So you talk about that. Yeah, okay.
It wasn't meant to inspire them at all, right? It was just for the fans.
Yeah. So now the interesting thing about how this morphs further, because there's a lot of times guys say stuff, it gets pinned up on, well, they don't even do that anymore, pinned up on the bulletin board. Nobody does that anymore. But lots of guys say controversial things, and it's forgotten quickly. But Jerry Meslowski, the late great marketing director, David Asper, and Lyle Bauer, the late great Lyle Bauer, were thinking again of how do we get a marquee game for Winnipeg? And so when you said that, it's like the light bulb went off. Like David Asper was telling me that he had even gone to U.S. college games to see these rivalry games, like the Iron Bowl, and the one in Minnesota's got like 10 rivalry games, and just to study how they do it. And so when you said that, the light bulb goes off in everybody, and that's got to be pretty cool for you to see how this is morphed into something.
Oh, for sure. Like the little thing, standing in line at the grocery store during this week and someone in a Ryder cab looking at you and smiling, like little things like that are pretty cool.
Yeah.
But what they did and how they took it, and I know for years leading up to that, there was some talk about wanting a back-to-back sort of a situation, and they could never seem to get it done, and it just seems like such a no-brainer, that's for sure. But they did it perfectly, that's for sure. And I think it was neat because the donation that was made to United Way for $10,000 and that sort of thing, and it's still to this day, as I understand, the Rough Riders hate the term and the name, which is just goofy because you have two teams taking part in the same game, two fan bases enjoying the same game. So just come on, man, embrace the fun.
Yeah, they're right. It was a game for charity. Like it wasn't malicious at all what the Bombers did. But you're right, because I remember Lyle Bauer saying that he'd go to Board of Governors meetings in the winter, and the Rider brass wanted it. They don't want any part of it.
Back then, I was the honorary chair for cystic fibrosis, and we wanted to, in Regina, in Saskatchewan, create a bunch of styrofoam banjos to sell before the Labor Day game the next year, and they wanted nothing to do with it. They wouldn't touch it. I was like, come on.
There's a lot of people that still in Regina that don't even use that term. It's just the game in Winnipeg this weekend.
Which makes it even better in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. You know what's weird is that the first year, the funny thing is too, you're the inspiration of it, or that was your quote that led to it, and you got to play in that game for a few. Like how many of the Banjo Bowls would you have played in? 4 or 5 at least?
Something like that, yeah.
And a game that you kind of helped create. But the first year didn't sell out, and now it's every year since it's sold out. Like, I think you were telling me you were bugging me to see if I could get tickets for you from Wade.
Oh, my goodness. I've never received tickets for this game. And a couple years ago, I was contacted by a fire hall of a rural town in Manitoba who had some sort of fundraiser and had promised Banjo Bowl tickets for this, and they were unable to deliver them. So it was back when I was at TSN, and they contacted me and said, hey, it was a few weeks out, can you help us? I said, yeah, I'll get you tickets. Well,
Really?
My wife just last week said, hey, do you think we can go to the Banjo Bowl? I said, no, I don't have tickets, and I know that there won't be any. Call my buddy Wade up. No, there's never tickets for Western. I don't know what it is. No.
I don't know if Wade's listening to this, but we got to take that. Even if you're just in the building and wander around, right? You don't have to have a seat.
Yeah, fair. But you know what? I do enjoy the private suite at home. Oh, do you? Right? Yeah, like everything at home. We got like 5 dogs. They're all good, or 4 dogs. I think that's illegal. 4 dogs, right? The 4 dogs, and me and Trey are sitting there with Mom, and Mom, we were watching a Colorado Buffalo game last week, the highlights, because Trey loves watching. And she asked, there's some receiver, last name's Jefferson, and of course, my beautiful wife said, is that Willie Jefferson? We're like, no, Mom, that's not Willie Jefferson playing for the Buffaloes. So, yeah, we just kind of like watching at home and staying low-key and stuff like that. But, yeah, it's. I have been to a couple of games, like to raise the flag and all that sort of stuff. It is a remarkably fun 2-week sort of sandwich together here.
Do you still get the vitriol from some people about it?
Never. I never did. Outside of the Brian Williams and Eddie, the winter after that, they made it a game. I don't know how many events, but I would get right away I would get these 8x10 sent to me of someone like some of the comic
at the Sun,
drew
yeah.
caricatures with me with like a big gut and long hair and
Yeah.
saying whatever and a smoke in my mouth and whatever. And I'd sign it, Saskatchewan sucks, sign it, and then send it back to some charity organization in Saskatchewan. They'd raffle it off for $450.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of that. One time I can't.
Is
I
this
think
the
it was-
Yorkton story?
Well, yeah, I think it was Yorkton that I was invited to partake in the parade, and I get there, meet George Reed, and like a bunch of stuff like that, and I'm sitting on a float going through town, 5 banjo pickers in the back, and I'm just sitting there waving like the Queen, like this, going through town. So they're invited to a dinner with Glenn Suter, speak at a dinner about getting booed when I get in it. It's like awesome stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there was one time I was in Saskatoon for a hockey tournament, run into a gas station to grab a Gatorade, run out, and run out and I buy 2 young guys, and I heard one of them go, I effing think that's Troy Westwood. Right? So, but never been, always treated like gold anytime I've been in Saskatchewan, and everyone seems to really enjoy it.
Yeah, it is fun. And when like that story about being, maybe it's Yorkton, maybe it's somewhere else, Humboldt, small town Saskatchewan, that they invite you out. That says something about the people aren't taking it seriously.
Yeah, well, you've got to be a little out in left field, I think, to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Right. And then I always, if there's any sort of, if I feel any sort of anything in the force, my mom's family was from Regina. We used to go out there constantly. I spent so much time out there as a kid and stuff like this. That breaks it all down. But yeah, you're out to lunch in a remarkable way if you ever felt anger about it.
Yeah. And so you can't get tickets. There should be some sort of royalty.
Well, I
thing
get,
or something.
for the last 18 years, I've collected 3% of the gate that's been arranged through the club. So I am independently wealthy now because of my quick wit and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, Josh, I don't know if we got some questions from people.
We got lots of questions. We've
right.
got questions rolling in.
Let's
It's
take
awesome.
some questions from the.
We got a ton of people hanging out. We got the Winnipeg Sports Talk raid, so they're hanging out in chat too, which is awesome. But yeah, we got lots of questions. So let's hit some of those right now.
Let's do it.
And a bunch of people have been asking this question. They want to know if you have any good Charles Roberts stories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, the very best 2 or 3 of them I can't share because it involved Charlie Roberts would bike into practice and leave his bike there, or he'd rollerblade in practice. I don't know if you remember this. And I attached some sort of paraphernalia to his roller skates. Was the funniest thing I ever did. Things that might have been sticking straight up in the air, and it was very funny. And then of course, right, you'd be driving into the game and you'd look in your rearview mirror and you'd see some guy with a big smile, a smoke hanging out of his mouth, driving like this, and it was Charlie.
Yeah.
Or we'd be at the Bomber dinner and you'd walk outside just to grab some fresh air or something like that, and Charlie be standing over there having a smoke with a bunch of the other folks at the Bomber dinner.
Yeah.
He was a beauty and a one of a kind.
Well, he is the all-time leading rusher in Bomber history, and I remember once because he was spectacular, right? And I remember he looked like he was going to score, and he got tackled by somebody, and Dave Ritchie, he got tackled by the Marlboro Man. He smoked too much, right?
Coach Ritchie was something.
Yeah.
And he was stout. Like, the neat thing about Charlie is I'm tiny in that locker room. He was way shorter than I was. But there's one time we were up close or something, and I just did this to him, and like there was no moving. Charlie was just stout for a little.
And he
fella.
wasn't a workout fiend, from what I.
Yeah, I believe inversely related would be Milt Stiegel to Charlie Roberts, and Milt would be ride him endlessly about that. God only, and I wonder, like you think of back in the old days when nobody worked out, right? Back think of guys like Bobby Clark, like sort of that era. But would Charlie have been so brilliant if he did work out, or it was like not working out? Was that part of his brilliance?
Superpower, yeah.
It's just amazing.
Superpower
man.
is I do not work out.
I don't think, and never stretch, right? We'd be stretching. Charlie would be doing whatever and just talking and laughing and, oh my goodness.
That when you said that, it sticks in my head that before practice, they'd get a strength coach would be out there making everybody, and he's laying there, just watching everybody else stretch. And then he'd go out and have 120 yards.
That's right, yeah. And that was okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, as long as you're doing that, coach doesn't care what
That's
you're
right.
doing. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, no doubt. Okay, next question's from Jen, and she wants to know What were the weirdest pregame routines you ever have, or that any that stuck out from your teammates?
7 pairs of socks.
Yeah, that was weird. I didn't, and I got I really cleansed or did the old exorcism for any sort of pregame routines. The one thing that I did that I tell folks, because it's something no one would think of, but I hate, and to this day when I go play soccer, I hate having to pee during games and stuff like that. There's nothing worse. Like if there's 5 minutes left in the half and you got to pee like a racehorse and you got to trot out there for a 42-yard field goal. So always during games, I would be treading, and trainers didn't like it, but I don't want to be overly hydrated, right? So I'd always edge on that dehydrated thing. And before all games, I'd pop 4 Pepto-Bismol pills, right? So I'd eat oatmeal always, just the same, something safe before the game. And then I'd pop 4 Pepto-Bismol pills just to make sure that everything in my tummy was on lockdown. Did that every year for 18, or every game for 18 years.
So 3 and 2 wouldn't have been enough. It had to be 4.
Well, 4 just really cranked it,
That did, eh?
Just
Kept everything good.
That was back in the old days when Jeff Reinbold, we'd have our team breakdown.
Yeah.
And one of his most famous lines ever: if the trainer tells you to take 2, take 4, break.
Here's a beauty. Okay.
Awesome. Someone wants to know, how often or if do you still think about the 2001 Grey Cup?
Great question. And I do. It's like part of my DNA. And what's really neat, and chumps will, oh, Westwood, you suck, 01. And I was in a conversation the other day with a buddy of mine, and my regular season percentage was 72.7 or something like that. When I stopped playing, I had the highest field goal percentage in playoff history. I think it was 87 point something. Mm-hmm. So pretty good in playoff time.
Yep.
In my whole life, that's the only time that I had a bad game. And so it profoundly affected me, man. And it was the growth, it sucked. And I think, I do think that I didn't miss a game-winning kick. I missed 2 kicks in the first quarter. I missed a 54-yard bomb in the third quarter, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And then we had everything that could have gone wrong for us went wrong, man.
Yep.
It was just a nightmare of a game. And after the game, I took full responsibility, and I sucked. You go 1 for 4. You're not helping your team win. But then I watched a guy like Lou Pasaglia miss a 35-yarder to win and get another chance to hit it seconds later and get. I'm like, it's just, there's so many little things, the luck and stuff like that.
That was the 94 Grey Cup.
Yeah, and you see stuff like that happen. I'd watch McLaughlin have a brutal Grey Cup, and they'd end up winning and stuff. It's just, and everyone forgets about it and stuff like that. But the lessons that I learned, like the strength and what that did to me internally, I'd rather probably be sitting here with a ring, and all of us from that era of losers, of Bombers, going to 4 Grey Cups and losing them all. And sure as heck, we were better than Calgary that year. But what
lot of things
what
went
that
wrong on
did,
that day.
yeah, what that did to transform me as an athlete and as a man, and the lessons, I can't even describe to you. After the game, for weeks to not, I wouldn't even look in a mirror. And then you go to the gym and you're just a hoodie down and to battle back from that, to come back from that, to get to that depth. And what do you do at that point? Whether you're a young kid athlete, you're an old man, wherever you are in life, and whatever challenge or adversity is in front of you, you have 2 choices, man. Yep. You wilt and die, or you say, F this, I'm coming back bigger, faster, stronger, let's go. Yeah. Right? So what that taught me, and the depth of it, right down to the very center of my core and soul, there was a lot of value to that has paid off well for me throughout my life and the circle around me.
You're talking about mental toughness a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Extreme mental toughness, for sure. And, I remember the first kick after that. So you come back to training camp, and we have our first exhibition game after the 01 season. And it was at home. And it was the wind was howling in our face. Trot out in the field for a 37-yard field goal. And the booing was remarkable, right? So there's a Winnipeg, Manitoba kid, right? And you're going out and it's a field goal. You go up, boo, loud. And so right there, mentally, shut that down and off. and then lining up out there, and the wind is screaming. I'm like, you're not thinking about. You're not allowed to think in those situations, right? You have a couple of rehashing more basic, like 2 ideas, or you keep repeating to yourself or whatever. And if I miss that kick, I'm gone for sure. I'm cut for sure. But just cranked it down the middle, and then everything ended up, lasting X number of years after that. But it was just a brutal situation, a remarkable lesson learned. And I think because of that, I've been able to pass on the teaching of adversity at a profound level to a lot of other folks.
Yeah. That kick then in the 2002 preseason game is funny. A preseason, it might have been one of the biggest kicks you've ever.
It was.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that I would have been cut if I
right?
missed that kick. Yeah.
So just to riff on that, I know we got some more questions, but you said you couldn't look yourself in the mirror. Getting through that to the point where you kind of you understand afterwards. I don't know how long later that you understand about the power of that, to survive that and get through it. That's got to be one of your most proud things, right? Is to go from that low to being able to say, okay, I beat that, I can survive that, and here's who I am now, right?
Yeah, and it's not a proud thing to me. No? It's more like a
growth.
Yeah, a man is the sum, a man or a woman is a sum of their experiences. And that is one that is that performing like that in such a big game is one that is a part of me. And it's there, man. It's a part of you. No matter what you do, even if we go on to win after that, there's still always that game that's gonna hang. And it's 100 times more powerful than in doing anything to win a game, I think, right? Like just the lessons and the struggles with that.
Okay.
But for sure, the echo of the teachings that followed that will radiate forever, I think, and with not just within me, but for sure with in teaching Trey or teaching the boys that I coach in soccer or being around young men in a mentorship role and that sort of thing, just the touches of adversity that they may have in their lives and how to meet the challenge and to refuse to allow yourself to wilt in those situations. There's a lot of spiritual impact to something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. Okay, more questions, Josh?
I think we're just kind of on our last one here, so I think this is going to be the last one from the fans, and this is a bit of an interesting hypothetical question for you to work through here. So this David says, Westy, if Kevin Glenn doesn't have his arm broken in the 2007 East Final, do you think Winnipeg wins the Grey Cup?
Unquestionably. Yeah. Everybody knows dang well that, right? We were in just a juggernaut at that point. There's no question whatsoever. But what a remarkable thing for Ryan Dinwiddie, right? Your first start ever in pro ball, and it's in the championship game. I don't know if that's ever happened in pro football history.
Yeah.
And we almost were able to put enough together, to certainly did enough to keep it close. But that was for Kev himself, and just a remarkable situation there. What was really neat about that too in 2007, right?
Yep.
We're in the center of the University of Toronto, which most prairie folks feel a certain way about, and all that was in Toronto was blue and gold and green and white. It was really neat that the two prairie epicenters of football descended into Toronto, where nobody knows what's going on with the Grey Cup, and just to play them in that game was really, really neat, right?
Someone reminded me the other day, because you talk about it being so close. If there was video review, there was that interception that wasn't an interception.
Yeah.
I think it was James Johnson from the Riders. That was a key moment. And then the coolest thing about that, you talk about Ryan Dinwiddie making his first ever start in the Grey Cup. The backup quarterbacks in that game, Cliff Kingsbury, who kind of, right? Yeah. And Zach Taylor, the coach of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Crazy.
Listen, that's wild. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so listen, this was
I'm going to jump in really quick before we wrap up. We do have one more, but first, before we get there, I'll just pass on all the love for you and for your honesty and for all of your time on 1290. We're getting a lot of love for that in the chat. So
right on.
Everyone hanging out, just wanted to pass that
Thanks,
on.
Everyone.
And then to bring it back to where we started and why you're here today, our final question of the day is from Eric, and he says, have you ever signed a banjo?
I don't think so.
Well, maybe
a lot of things, but
one.
I don't think a banjo,
Yeah, that's cool. Well, so listen, Yeah, I know you had to scramble to get here, Winnipeg construction season, right? So I appreciate you trucking all the way over from your spot to do this today, Troy. Again, this weekend is fun. It's supposed to be fun, and people don't understand that, then you just miss the bus on that. And it's so cool to have a marquee event like this of our own. This is the one ticket that nobody can get, including the guy that that's just unbelievable, including the guy who was the kind of the brainchild behind it. So appreciate you doing this, Troy.
And hey, keep it friendly. I saw a video of
I
some
saw the fight.
stupid fight. Like, no matter how many wobbly pops are consumed and that sort of thing, if you know, have a good circle of support around you, buddies that will hold you back and straighten out. Let's just keep it peaceful and fun, friendly.
Right.
Everybody be safe and have a bunch of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let's go bury those stubble jumpers.
I love it. Thanks again for everybody for tuning in, for being patient for a little bit of a late start today. Again, no show next week because the Bombers are on the bye. And we will see you Tuesday at 3 o'clock the following week on the Blue Bombers YouTube page. Thanks a ton.